Thank you, Tim Refat, for the complex number space on your whiteboard one day. So you have negative numbers and positive numbers. So here's a simple example. Go watch a football game. Those are all numbered jerseys, right? They don't have a negative space, counter space, the minus sign on those numbers, do they? But that's what they represent. So when you see it, you see a positive number, but they don't represent positive energy, pure blood. They represent negative, RH negative, but they put a positive number. So when you see it as what you think is positive, what's there as energy is inverted, which is RH negative, which means they're going back. This is why the AI plays a numbers game, which are codes, which are based on gene codes, which are based on hybrid codes. That's what launched the war in heaven. We have access to all the real living light codes, which is pure blood codes, which is positive electrons. That's future. They represent the past, which is why they keep repeating and running in simulations, because they can never catch up to zero, because that's what a negative is. A negative can never get up to zero. It's always in a hole. That's why a polarity integrator brings it all together back to the law of one. That's an enormous amount of fire. Okay. From the unlawful Anunnaki and Draco breeding experiments and other fallen races or races that are dying that have been using our DNA as the means in which to do what? Continue to reproduce. Now, I knew all this as a child, actually knew this before I jumped in here. So I know what I know, when I'm supposed to know, when I'm supposed to know it, for the reasons that the guardian of all creation would be in here. Right? Being 3, 11, or if you will, 111, that's my birthday, 1110. 3 is 1, 1 is 3. Right? So you obviously have a balanced relationship with water worlds that are on fire. That's creation energy. I'm creation energy. An engine of truth. So when you think of 7, right, the nose, 7, and then you look at a gun, and you can see the shape of it, it's a gun, right? That's not positive. That's a negative. That's a negative. That's an RH negative number, because that gun represents a weapon. That meant that the consciousness that built that weapon is negative, because it's building that gun to do what? What is the purpose of that weapon? It's weaponized consciousness. Now, if in your mind you're using that weapon as the means in which to protect what you give love to, then you're using it for a positive reason. I remember one time Patty Broussard said, when we destroyed 6 of their homeworlds, I did so without any hate in my heart. See? So you can imagine what it's like for me as being hypersensitive, being 1. What it is to eliminate something that is destroying something I'm giving love to, which is myself. You see? Now, the way that this sort of gets translated, and I'll share this with you if you didn't already know this, why some people in the spiritual community go, why would you ever do that? Because that's like an energetic cord. And I finally managed to be able to burn that one off, because she wanted spiritual help, because her eyes looked into my eyes and she said, my spirit is bent. But I was able to picture in my mind a future event where her spirit has now been freed, where she's recovered the soul fragments from which what was done to her, to hardwire her to the reptile. That's what they do, to become fear-based. Now her energy's all over the place, not the least of which members of her bloodline family had raped, sodomized her at such an early age as a girl. So she had 3 altars, okay? So you can see that because I was experiencing her, she was extremely intelligent. She's operating on the Black Goo AI now. That would be your Anunnaki and Draco. Right? That's why she called her little girl Anu. A-N-U. Right? Anu. Yeah. So how this sort of relates, what I did with her, because she wanted my help. So when you realize that you represent the one, you are the one because you're experiencing eternal unconditional love through your heart, you realize that being in the presence of somebody that's running these codes, we naturally transmute it back to eternal fire. Okay? Because that's how much fire is in the one. Which means you can't put that fire out. That's maximum thermal. Right? So you need an awful lot of water to cool that kind of engine down, right? So when you realize that no matter what happens to her, I made an agreement with her, okay, to see if she would do this. So I gave her like what we call sort of a sample. So I wrote her a love letter, an unconditional love letter, to see what her response was going to be to that, right? The reaction state, to see how much of her soul is actually left for her to be able to experience and cry and release the pain to experience love. Does she have any resistance to experiencing how much that love is real to her? So I experienced how much she was crying and releasing that, okay? Because she knew that I represented what love is, because when she met me, she was experiencing the real stuff. So she knows that somebody who's experiencing what love is through their heart and their soul, and she's experiencing that, then she's wanting the spirit that is in that light, because that light is what spirit is. You have no idea how much it, my heart just cries for her when she hadn't seen me for a while, just to give you an example of how this works with somebody who represents that particular bloodline, because she was O negative. When she hadn't seen me for a while, when she came up, her and her son came running out, okay? And she got down on her hands and knees and wrapped her arms around my lower legs, like I was some pharaoh, okay? And it's like, Misha, please don't. You don't have to do that, okay? But you realize the translation, what that level of communication is telling you. It's a way of her showing her thanks and her gratitude and her grace. Because what we're talking about is energy transfer based on codes. It's what it is. See? So in other words, she loves your energy. She's thanking you for your energy because she's experiencing the real deal. But because of everything that has happened to her, that's held through all of those codes, as a result of everything that she's experiencing that has traumatized her, is all meant to do what? Fall her spirit, have it consumed, there goes her soul. And guess where she is now? She's back in jail in Wisconsin. So when you're noticing a 4-year-old, her daughter, mimicking the same behavior of her mother, so it's like, I already know what that future is, right? That's why her son, for example, bless his heart, Logan, okay, that he goes through, he smokes pot like all day long. So you know why that is, right? He's got to deprogram all these codes because of the codes that he's associated with that are being transferred, that he's now experiencing with his consciousness, that are driving him nuts. See, that's what their codes are designed to do, drive you nuts. So that your central nervous system, which are your neuroions, are totally out of balance, distorted, right? So now you don't know up from down, east from west. That means your gyrodome, your gyroscope is all over the place, which means your energy is all over the place. Now, I have a different word that I use. It's called being scattered. The fragments are all over the place. That's what they do here. So this is a major crime scene investigation coming into this planet ship on behalf of the entire universe, actually all of creation. That's why the one put the call out. I put the call out. This is like I knew this as a child. You know what all hands on deck is with the United States Navy. Go ask the United States Navy. Go ask a sailor what all hands on deck means. That means every unit of energy that represents what love is got the call. They heard the horn. Ooh. Just like they do in Tibet. That's called a clarion call, like a clarinet. A clarion call. Clara, clarinet, clarinet, clarify. Clarify is to purify. Purify the signal. We got the signal. Okay. Which means we got the codes. We know what's here. That's right. That's why they knew they was in a race against time. So if you don't translate the codes, what they present to you, like I was very blessed as a child to be able to read the codes. Actually, I read it a different way, which is simply with my antenna. I mean, I'm aware of the density of the consciousness that is here, that is feeding on your soul, trying to hold your consciousness captive in which to feed on it as a result of what they are versus what we are. So you know what negative is, right? Keep feeding on the positive. Keep feeding on the positive, right? Burn your wick out. Burn your bundles out. Nerve bundles. Yeah. Burn your nerves out. Burn your nerve bundles out. There goes your candle. You don't have any future left. Because that's what they do. That's what happens to a race that uses its energy in such a way that they experience the things that they do as a result of that are not productive. They're not positive experiences. So you can somehow translate this between code transfers, okay, which are like numbers that they now experience as fire letters that fire based on the activation of those codes. So I've known this since childhood. They experiment and they use the knowledge that they have in order to use their consciousness to do things that are forbidden. Forbidden. Okay? These are crimes in which all of creation cannot tolerate to become aware of something that evil that's doing that to souls. So the call went out. Just like a foghorn when they're in the fog, in the vapor. I can hear your horn, you're there. The call went out. We're here. It's over. I've known that since I was a child. I've never left the center point of all creation. Aloha to all of you. I love all of you with my heart and soul. Yeah, mama.